What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Combat Chain, episode 47. I'm your host, Adam Philipchuk, joined as always by my good friend and co-host, Sean Hill. And today we're gonna run right into this week because we got a lot of things to dive into. Our guest this week is a huge member of the Canadian fab community. He's influenced its growth in more ways than I think most people will realize. He is a co-founder of the Canadian Fab Discord server, a co-founder of the very popular content channel, Spark of Genius, and people near and far clamor at the marvel of his diamond hands. Allow me to welcome to the show the Shard Lord himself, Rob from Canada.
Hey, nice to be here. I really like that paragraph you wrote about me. I couldn't have done better myself, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
You found a way to use clamor in a sentence in a way that's like concise and proper.
That vocabulary is above my pay grade, so
above rate, dude.
I pride myself on my linguistic capacity. I don't know. How's it going, guys? Lots going on this past week. I know there's a ton of spoilers we saw, but we're not. We're not going to talk about spoilers really today. I know, Rob, you're with Spark of Genius. You mentioned before the show you and Eric are working on some stuff for that. Sean and I have some plans for that. There's a ton of, if you're on Twitter, if you're anywhere in Discord, there's a ton of talk about spoilers. So we're going to leave that one on the side for today. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Sean here because he's got some really cool ideas.
Hey guys, Rob, thank you for being here. I'm glad to have you on.
My pleasure.
And Adam, dude, that was quite the intro, man. You're getting better at those. Like you're amassing power.
Thanks, man.
I feel like I got to live up to that a little better now. It's like, oh man, is that all true? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, dude, you're gonna have we're gonna be snipping all of your intros, and at the end of the year, we'll do a montage of all your intros, and we'll see the progression of your intros. So this week was really cool, and Robin and us, we were all talking before this, and there's so much content out there talking about the new cards and the value of the card, and then the value of the cards, but people analyzing what's the best card in the set and blah blah. One thing that I'd be remiss if we didn't go into with Rob is, let's talk more about the value of the set as far as collecting and collecting the cards and looking at the value of the cards. Because for those of you who don't know, Rob is the collector baller of Canada. He is the how would I
Can we call it? Can we hot take? He's the Canadian saint.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would that be a little
too
much?
Big shoes to fill for sure.
I'm sure you actually.
I'm gonna step down on my high horse a little bit. I think Chocho, for anyone who doesn't know him, he's the baller of Canada.
Okay. Oh, Arthur?
Okay.
Yeah.
He's our Arthur, Mr. Chocho.
You know what? Yeah, Arthur's the saint of Canada. I'm willing
so.
I'm willing to make that
and he's not
claim.
here to debunk that, so he can have that title.
But Arthur doesn't have one thing that you have, which is we were talking about earlier, is that 9.5 signed.
The cold foil tunic signed by James White. Oh, I wish I had it. It's on a shelf over there.
I can get it later. You know what Arthur does have though? He has the gnarliest playmat collection of anyone.
Yeah.
That's fair.
It is.
Whenever a new event comes out, you'll see his buying post for every playmat on that list at a premium. He does not skimp out.
So Arthur and I are quite close friends, and when we when we're both at events, when him and that group's at an event that I'm also at, that's the group I'm hanging out with.
Right.
Those are the guys I'm, just because there's a comfort level there. We're all in the Alberta Discord.
Yeah.
So anyway, that to say that when we were in Vegas and we were in San Jose together, watching that man work to acquire all the playmats,
hustling.
Oh, hustling. Well, so in Vegas, I think at one point he had a pile of 15 or 20 mats that he was taking home. He's yeah, good guy that he is. He if anybody else, like in the local community, if there's anybody else who's not at an event who there's a mat there that they want, he will go out of his way to like get that mat for them, and bring it home. And so like I've seen the guy like pack like 20-30 mats home from an event, and it is insane to just watch that man hustle for his collection. And oh man,
I think that's his pride and joy of fab collecting. I think the play mats. He has everything. I think he's got every playmat.
We should bring Arthur on. He's such an interesting character, and he's trying to
hit him up.
Yeah, we'll line that up. That'd be a cool episode, I think.
So less about playmats because like neoprene is cool, but like let's talk like
let's talk cardboard, the shiny cardboard.
There you go, baby. Let's talk about that cardboard crack. Outsiders spoils are out. We've seen the cards, and there's some like really heavy hitters in there, but one of the things that's really important, and I think a lot of people are freaking out about, is we're noticing that cards are scarcer. Valuable cards seem to be a little scarce in these boxes, and we've only seen like six I think openings so far. I wanted to ask you, Rob, like you've been in part of the game for a long time. I've been part of the game for a long time. Adam's been part. We've all opened a crap ton of product.
More than I like to admit on this show.
Yeah. Same here. We're gonna keep those numbers to ourselves.
Like we're all like Sean and I are like baby orcas. Like we're small little whales that are like even
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're very, very small little dolphins, and then you got like Mr. Whale over here. But no, but on a very serious matter, like a lot of people are freaking out that there's 5 to 6 Majestics per box as being shown. Marvels seem to be very scarce because we were really spoiled with Marvels out of Uprising. Uprising had like a Marvel a box.
It was close to like 1.5 Marvel. It was 2 to 2.5 Marvels per case, I think. So we were close to like 1 every 2 boxes or a little bit more than that. Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then like when Dynasty came out, Marvel's like, I opened 4.5 cases or something like that of Dynasty, and I think I got 1 to 2 Marvels, which I might have just been unlucky. But I'm thinking we're going to start seeing a little bit more scarcity. Like the Marvels are going to start being more scarce, but this is a big surprise for us on the Majestics. What do you think about that?
So I'm actually worried a little bit for the Majestics. I really thought that 8 Majestics was a very comfortable point. When I opened up like the X amount of cases I bought, it was like between like 5 and 6 usually like per set. I would only narrowly get the play sets that I needed, and I like to have every play set in the game because we do videos in Spark of Genius. We want to have all the cards to be able to play all the janky decks out there, so I do like to try to get every play set, but I narrowly got the play sets without having to go and buy them on the market. With like 5 or 6 cases. Of course, there were some extras, which is great, but I'm worried now that I'll have to buy more to keep up with, what I used to be doing. And speaking about, EV, Majestics, now because of this, there might be a price increase in Majestics, right? You're not getting as many, but Majestics range between like $1 to maybe like $10-15 for like the more chase ones. Like a Race Face was like the premium Majestic, I guess, which was like $15. So I'm a little worried for the price of Majestics, and I am worried about now having to buy more boxes to complete the sets, right?
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people are. And so there's this mentality, and I want to ask you this because we were both the benefactors of the craziness that happened in Crucible and when things started going up a little bit.
The Monarch?
Monarch, I mean, Monarch, a lot of us ate our socks on Monarch, but one of the things that happened was for a while there, like Majestics out of Crucible were worth a lot of money. Like I remember, I think it was Beast Within was like a $50 card. Right.
That there was Spoils of War went crazy.
Yeah,
that was like $150 for the rainbow foil one. I remember.
Yeah.
So that Twinning Blade was a huge $100 I think for the rainbow foil. No, you're right. Yeah.
So looking at that, and one of the things that I was noticing back then was people weren't, and it maybe because of the way the economy was for the game, but people weren't as sensitive to those prices back then. It was kind of like, it's good for everybody. Like you got cards, you sold them, you made money, you bought other cards, and it kind of just, it was,
Yeah.
And I think that there's one thing that it might be a hot take, but if we see a market where the Majestics start being worth more, yes, it's not necessarily great for card availability for the game, but all around, isn't that better for the players? Is that that's something that I feel, and I come from a place of privilege where like I have a master set, and I'm like, I have a little bit of money and I put it in Fab,
Right.
And so I don't see it as a big of an issue. And the argument is, well, if I want to start playing the game, I'm going to have to buy, a playset of these $40 cards. But as someone who's buying packs and opening packs, like, isn't that better for everybody? What do you think?
I think right now, so with Uprising and Dynasty, we're seeing the prices of Majestics, in my opinion, be too low.
Okay.
I think that there are a lot of Majestics selling for 50 cents right now, and in a box where you get like 8 of them, like that's pretty low. So I'd be happy if the prices did go up a little bit, but I think there is a point where there's a threshold where you start to make it a little harder for new players to get into the game. Because if they see that there's now, like, CNC was a big problem, right? For a lot of people, that was the top. Yeah, it's true, it still is. So that was the top card of contention for most people, because they're like, most decks run it, and I need 3 of them. That's $300 just for a playset of Majestics. That's not even counting the armor, right? So that card was a problem. I don't think any card should ever reach that point again as a Majestic. I think that was just way too high. But if we're seeing like Majestics hit the average of like $10, that's not so bad, I think. Maybe it's a little high for most people, for some people, but I think for me that'd be pretty comfortable.
I know Adam's like, I can see Adam like the hamster spinning. You have a comment there, buddy?
No, I'm. I was typing something on Discord actually, and I'm laughing at the response to it. So don't. Mind me.
Okay, cool. So
well, you know what? Actually, while we're here, it surrounds the Arthur being the Canadian saint, and somebody made a good point. What about Mickey Singh?
Yeah, Mickey, man. So the thing about Mickey's, I don't know if he really collects. I don't know him that well, to be honest. I'll preface it with that.
That's fair.
But I think he just kind of cracks a lot of product. He cracks more than Arthur, I'm pretty sure. But I think he sells a lot of it. Whereas Arthur, he's more of a collecting guy. So he'll kind of get every promo, every mat, every playset in the highest rarity, whereas I think Mickey's okay with letting that stuff go.
I think Mickey's the biggest dealer of Flesh and Blood.
I would say
cards.
He's more of a dealer than a collector.
Yeah, I bought stuff off Mickey. He's a great guy.
Oh yeah, every time.
Everybody's bought stuff off Mickey.
Everyone knows Mickey. If he has to buy cards, he's the first guy. Oh, very nice. Yeah.
And Mickey is one of those people who had surgicals, which we're going to talk about surgical in like
I got
minute.
the sickest deal at auction from Mickey. I got recently, I think I got a playset of Command and Conquers for like just a hair over 200 CAD, and a playset of E-Strikes was 120 or 130 CAD, and I was like,
that guy has too many cards.
For anyone who doesn't know watching this, the Canadian auctions and the Canadian Discord are the place to be if you want good deals on cards.
Absolutely. Like if you're able to just wait around a bit, or you're looking to just buy things to sit on, like the Canadian auctions is the place to be.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. I introduced a new player to the game. He's like, I need all these cards. I'm like, just check out the auctions.
Yeah,
and he ended up he got I can't remember what he bought, but he bought like a tunic, a Providence, and like a couple other things, all for like under $400.
Yeah.
So he really got his start like that Stormstriders and a bunch of other stuff for like $400 or $500. So he really got his start hard in the game with one of the auctions. So keep an eye out for the Canadian Discord. I think we could probably put like an invite or some kind of like thing in the comments.
It's a public Discord, so there's going to be a link available that we can.
I'll put the link along with the Spark of Genius Twitter. I usually put the Twitter. I'll toss the link in there too. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Sweet. Because we were one of the things that you mentioned was the armor, right? Because I remember when Monarch came out and a little bit after Monarch and Tales, the big point of contention for new players was, I don't know if I can get into this game. Armor's too expensive.
Legendary armors. Yeah.
And so for a long time, like people getting into Fab, and even with Uprising, even though there's cards like Erase Face that were really valuable and stuff, like people were looking to buy boxes for the Legos. That's where the value was. And
that's the EV of the box, the legendaries,
which is great, but at the same time, like I think that if the EV could be more balanced, and even if like a good example of this is Stalagmite. How much is Stalagmite right now, Rob?
It jumped. I'll give it some credit. It jumped, but it was like $40 for the longest time.
Yeah, right now I think it's hovering around 100.
Yeah, I think it jumped to close to that. Yeah. It's going up.
Yeah. And it's like, well, that's like, that card is really, really great. And at $80, $100, that's a great price for a legendary. But I remember buying an Arknight shard, not an Arknight shard, a Arcanite Skull Cap for $250.
Yep, those are the days. It was almost $300 at some point.
It was, and now it's an unplayable. Well, not unplayable. I still think it's a great piece, but like, it's a card that no one really cares about.
It's $60-$70 Canadian, I think, around there. There was the reprint. There was the release of Crown of Providence that just kind of blew it out of the water for most decks. And it was actually very interesting to me that it dropped so drastically in price. I didn't expect that. Like, if you had asked me that before Providence came out, I would have told you that this would never drop below $200. But there it was, $60.
Came out and and then bam. So to kind of cover out like the whole Outsiders segment or whatever you want to call it before I give it to Adam, because I think, Adam, we're going to go into that surgical extraction just because it's a great segue.
Sure.
Looking at the EV of the set, and I'm thinking that less Majestics is a bummer. And I also, that's what you shouted as well. I think it's a bit of a bummer, but I think people are too quick to judge, because more expensive Majestics mean better, like more value in the hands of players in a weird way, because Majestics are more attainable. But obviously, it sucks to have to buy like 8 cases to complete a play set of anything.
It's true. And I will also, just to final point on that, if you don't hit a legendary in the current cases, like a Dynasty and Uprising, your box is pretty much worth nothing. Right? So it's super hit or miss. If you buy a case and hit 1 legendary, you're not sitting very pretty. If you hit 2, you might be okay. But then again, a single box EV, it depends totally on the legendary. Or the Marvels, I guess. The Marvels are okay. I think they did okay with the Marvel, like the Tiger, all the dragons from Uprising. They were a good $30-$40. So you pull one of those, it's good. But again, it's 1 every 2 boxes on average. So you can miss.
Yeah, exactly. You can miss. And I think having better value in cards that are more attainable is better for the game all over. But that will mean that legendary should trend downwards.
Exactly. You got to balance them out, which might be good, actually, because you don't have to buy the single legendary that's like $200, right?
Exactly. I think that if that's the way they're going, where like legendaries are more attainable and Majestics start to be worth a little bit more money, like the card that Adam's going to lead us in with is Surgical Extraction. Like, I think that's a perfect example of that. Adam, like knock us out, man.
All right. I'm a little disappointed you mentioned it twice, because I could have built so much like hype and suspense on it. I might in the edit actually like bleep out, like censor you saying it each time to build some hype comically. I don't know what I'm gonna do. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so since we're talking about collecting this week, and we're looking at, I mean, everybody's eyes are on Outsiders right now, and especially I think a lot of people are hyped on Assassin stuff. Which then, if you look at getting everything you need for Assassin, you're likely looking at Dynasty as well. And there is a card that, as Sean mentioned, Surgical Extraction, that at this point, well, I think people caught on pretty quickly. Like when people started saying, I remember started hearing that like Surgical Extraction's short printed, like day 2, day 3 after release, something like that. It didn't take long, but a lot of and even for myself, like I'll say for 4 or 5 cases, I didn't see a single one. So yeah, then the notes come out where we see, in fact, it was confirmed to be short printed as an error, and that explains why I have 20,000 regicides now.
Right, yeah, because that one you would assume that would be the short printed card, because it was like the one of. But, yeah.
I remember like so I guess was I would assume regicide would then technically have been overprinted, because it would have been in surgical slot. So yeah, I've got more regicides than I can shake a stick at. Like,
when we're talking about 50-cent Majestics, that's like the prime 50-cent Majestic right there.
I'll say, yeah, underutilized, overprinted.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so with the the spoilers we've seen for Outsiders, and I think what Surgical's up to, last I saw, I think I heard something about 80 USD. Is that correct?
84.
Non-foil has gone up that much?
84 USD as of this morning on TCG Player.
I just sold one for 50 Canadian. I should take that back.
Good guy, Rob.
Definitely should. I'll buy it. I'll give you $70 now.
No, I'm not going to back out of a deal, but that's surprising. That is a crazy jump. Honestly, I thought they were going to reprint it in the next like printing of Dynasty.
So I guess one of the things. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like if they.
I thought they were going to correct the how many times you see that in the case, because
do you think they can't, like, they're in a position to do that? Like, maybe they commissioned enough Dynasty the first time that they're still sitting on it.
It's possible. I don't know. I thought that because they mentioned it was an error that they would try to fix it, because I do think that's a problem, especially if you want to play Ninja. Assassin. Sorry, you have to get a playset of that. It's almost a must.
Like right now, it's Command and Conquer levels expensive, and at least Command and Conquer is like, you buy a playset of Command and Conquer, you can use
it in many decks, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to just play it in Arachne.
Like, that's way too expensive for a class Majestic. So, that's where my
one of the main. Yeah. For one of the main classes, that's going to be in Outsiders now. That's going to increase demand for the card.
Yeah, and so that's where like my mind goes to this place. So first off, like, we don't know when LSS found out about this. It could have very well been like the first time they found out about it was when the people started saying, oh, we think it's short printed, because short of that, how are they supposed to know? It's in the packs, right? Like, no one's watching each sheet go through the printer. I doubt anybody's just QCing the files to see
for every card
through it. So I think I bet you that's the first time LSS gets wind of it, and then now they have to do an investigation, and probably somebody does have to sit there and comb through the print file. But Rob, you say like LSS. I think a lot of people, I know in my local communities, I've heard a lot of people talk about like they want LSS to make this right, and how does LSS make this right? But I think one of the confounding variables is because of, and morally and ethically, I think I'd rather see them try to like make it right by the players before the collector. But
I see. Yeah.
But the thing is, because of the entire, like, at the end of the day, we all know that opening booster packs, there's an element of gambling to it to some extent, and I think I'll bet you though, Flesh and Blood being that on the box, it's 16 plus, probably doesn't absolve them of any sin, because it's still technically a minor, but they can at least advocate that they're not preying on children, like Pokemon, and when we talk about because the loot box concept has been a very hot topic recently, and rightfully so. Like, at what point are you preying on people versus and by no means do I think LSS is doing that, but from the wrong perspective, if the wrong person gets pissed off or catches wind of something, like
there can be a claim there.
There can be a claim is the thing. Yeah. So that's where LSS, I genuinely think, though you make it right by the player, you do have to be careful about like not getting yourself in any trouble in this situation. So it's like, I liked your idea, Rob, of if more Dynasty gets commissioned, obviously you fix the print file for that. That's
like the next wave, fix it. And I honestly don't think that people are going to be pissed off about that. Like, people who are collecting this stuff, because from my point of view, and my stance has been, be very careful about this card, because it was a mistake, first of all, to make it short print. No one's going out there and buying a ton of copies of this, right? Like, no one's kind of buying this card out to sit on, because there's that risk that they will correct their problem, their mistake. And I think the vast majority of people are going to be happy that it gets fixed, and maybe like one person who bought like a bunch of these at a high price will be upset. But like, who do you really care more about in this case? Collectors should be happy about their cold foils. A playable non-foil Majestic should be reprinted, in my opinion.
I'll interject here, because I think that there's something really interesting that we can kind of go into if we have a little bit of time to do so. Is Adam brought up a really interesting idea. I think it talks about card games on a bigger level, and that's, what if anything happens? What if there's an investigation and all that? Rob, you're pretty invested in cards.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty like I remember I can't remember what game it was, but I think it was the Marvel Snap beta, and they were asking you a questionnaire to see if you could get into the beta, and one of the questions was is most of your worth in cardboard, or like is most of your personal worth in cards?
Interesting question. Yeah,
I know, right? And I was like, yep. You know, I didn't even have to think about it. It's like, yes, yes,
great.
sir, it's right here.
It's like take me into the beta.
Yeah,
I'm your
most
man.
of it's like, yes, I own more money in cards than I have in my bank account. What else the fuck? What the fuck else do you want to know? You know, you can bleep that at him, but it does bring up the it does bring up the idea of like it is a wildly unregulated space.
Yes.
And that opens up like we met because I had gotten scammed out of I bought a Rampart of a Ram's head and the guy just took my money and ran, right? And so we met through the Discord because I advised you guys like, hey, be careful, there's this guy out there and he's scamming people, and he scammed a lot of people out of a lot of things. And so that's how we met the first time, which is hilarious.
Aren't you glad he scammed you?
I'm glad, yeah. Best $260 investment ever.
The real investment is the friends we made along the way.
Absolutely. I met you, laugh, but I met you, I met Jordan Chu, and I met Frank Hung through that, because Frank Hung he was managing the Facebook group, the Flab fan Facebook group at the time, I think. And I advised him of that same thing, like, hey, this guy's scamming people.
Right.
And that guy's since moved on to MetaZoo, where he's free to scam whoever the hell he wants.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because back then, I will say that the Canadian Discord was kind of like a group of you know there's an animal in New Zealand that is like living in its own little island, the quokkas. They live on their own little island, no predators. They are just happy to do whatever they want and live prosperously. That's what we were until scammers came in.
No, but not just that. Like, so it's really interesting because like, and that's kind of the part of the unregulated market. Because fun fact, and this is a little bit of a bummer, I had reported the theft to the police, and they were like, "Too bad, so sad."
They don't do anything. I've seen countless cases.
Yeah,
they're like, well, what do you want us to do? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it cost me $260 to make friends and learn a lesson, right? And so
the lesson's pretty important, I guess.
I guess, right? And I found that a lot of people didn't report, but going back into the unregulated and the gambling side of things,
wild west,
the wild west. And like we see this happen a lot, where people will like overextend and they'll try to short a card specifically, right? Like that happened in Crucible for a while. People were like holding on to very specific cards and trying to jack up the price.
It's been happening recently also with Dynasty and
really
Uprising. Yeah, not just that, but the Heart of Fyendel, Eye of Ophidia, those. There are rumors that it's being bought out. No one really knows who. There are some people who are pointing fingers, but it's happening nowadays too.
That's really interesting.
With several cards. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that brings up a really interesting concept, because I fell into the gacha games pretty hard. Like I
love those games.
I have a small issue sometimes with gambling.
You just go way too hard into it. Yeah.
I go way too hard, but I find that like since I've gotten into Fab and like I've opened boosters, it kind of
that satisfies the itch.
It satisfies the itch for like 3 months, and I'm like, when's the next set coming out? So it does get me like that thing, but for a while it didn't, and so I got into gacha games, and there's that whole concept of, because it's unregulated, because card games are a game, and therefore they appeal to a large amount of people,
right?
And although Fab is mostly adults that we play the game, for some reason it seems to be very young adults. I think that there's like kind of a responsibility from anybody making any kind of product like this to just be consensus and to be conscious of the issue that's going on with that. And to be fair, LSS has addressed that pretty well. They're pretty transparent with their product releases. They're transparent with what they're doing with the products. And yeah, I think a good step forward for them to just make it clear that their remedying stuff is like, whenever next set of Dynasty comes out, we are going to fix the ratio. And honest to God, I'd pump the ratio up. I'd say increase the ratio on Surgical.
Just to
print way more than you need.
For what happened.
Yeah, whatever should have been printed in first, printed in Unlimited.
Honestly, there shouldn't be any consequence to this card dropping in price at all. It's not a collector. It's not meant for collectors. It is not a cold foil. It's for players. It has to be.
Not even first edition anymore. Like,
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's Fab 2.0.
It's a player economy. it's a player game, it's a player economy, and they should keep that in mind, because there's nothing cooler than going to a tournament and people having the cards they need to play.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a popular deck coming into Outsiders,
Absolutely.
so I think it just has to be printed.
Awesome.
Especially
Even a reprint. If they reprinted in Outsiders, I wouldn't even be that upset. If that was the only way they had to correct it, I wouldn't be that upset.
Neither would I be. I think
I know we haven't seen, like, I think there's one or two maybe cards we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I don't.
Like
it probably won't.
I don't think
it won't
it's in
happen.
there, though. I heard somebody joke, what if it's the Fable for this set? And I was like, no, that'd be worse.
That'd be worse. Yeah.
That'd be awful.
That was like a slap to your face. You want more of them? Here's a Fable worth $500.
Yeah.
Dude, that's exactly what happened with Command and Conquer. You remember how everybody's like, Command and Conquer being reprinted. Like, once we saw the Emperor and Lil, everybody's like, holy shit, Command and Conquer, whoa, lo, like being reprinted. Everybody loses their fucking mind. Yeah, praise the sun. And then like LSS is like, yeah, it's coming back, and then bam, $600 Marvel.
Well, you know what?
Fuck you guys. Or not Marvel, but
at the end of the day, they can just inject as much HP1 as they want into the market. Like, if they keep just slowly printing it, like, Command and Conquer should in theory never be, like, get stupider than it is now. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
True. Well, you got if there are more players than supply that comes in, it might keep going up.
What I'm saying is LSS has a ethical means to maintain that balance at this point. So we can have some faith in the fact that, like, they can print HP1 for 10 years for all we care, if the player base keeps growing. Like, and the nice thing about that too, like, because I'll be honest, like, when I got into the game, I don't have really a bunch of alpha or anything, but I've got a ton of unlimited Arc and Welcome to Wraith and things that, like, right now they're obviously that's more expensive than HP1, but they're not, like, astronomically expensive. But if we, in a world where, because I think at the end of the day, we can say at this point, short of some drastic something, LSS has done well enough that I think it should endure. I feel confident.
I think there's no question that the game's going to keep going. As long as they keep going the way they are, it'll be there for 10 more years at least. I don't think they're going to slow down.
In that world, unlimited, like the unlimited we have, becomes beta magic, right? So it's like,
exactly.
So in that world, I can, with the way they did it with HP1, me sitting on all my beta flesh and blood, can still feel good about the fact that my investment's even protected. Like, I'm not threatened by HP1 in the slightest bit. But it's a great way to keep supplementing the new player who goes, I want to play Flesh and Blood. Where do I start? HP1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's and I this is like completely off topic, but I've had a chance to meet James White twice by now, right? He cares deeply about his game, which is good. And one thing that's really important to keep in mind is that he's someone who worked, I don't know if he worked for Konami but he worked with the Yu-Gi-Oh product for a long time. Right. And I don't care if you don't like Yu-Gi-Oh, this is not about the Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's about their system. Yu-Gi-Oh is a player-based game first, right? And so the way that they're all for reprints. Like, you can buy a starter deck and have like the equivalent of Command and Conquer.
I played Yu-Gi-Oh for 15 years of my life, by the way, so I know exactly how that game works. They would release a set. There'd be a secret rare in the set that is really good and sells for $100 a pop, and you need 3 of them for your deck. Next set, reprint as a common. Everyone who bought them.
Next starter deck.
Next starter deck, exactly. They'll include all the pot of whatever in the next set and the next deck, and then, like, people who spent all the money on the original secret rares, well, then now they're like $10. So
no, that's the thing.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So it's not necessarily $10. There's a lot of secrets and stuff that stay really high for a long time.
That's true. They become more collectibles, right? And so
they become collectibles. So there's like the separation between like the cards that are there for the players that want to integrate, and then there's the cards that are there for the legacy players. And there's also something in Yu-Gi-Oh where like a lot of people will play secret rare decks with all secrets and just
they'll bling out the decks all the way.
They'll not just bling it out. Like, a lot of these guys are like, yeah, I was there when that card first came out. You know, it's kind of a it's like a almost
sentimental, like pride, hipster kind of feeling. It's like I was there before.
I was there. You know, like, my duels are black bordered motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
So what I meant by going into that tangent is that reprints are good for players. Although they tend to tank the economy of certain cards, they're good for players, and I think that James White wants the game to be played. Like their whole philosophy is, playing great games in person with people, and like it's all about getting people together. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. And if you're someone who's watching this and doesn't really know what Fab is or wants to get into it, the game is growing, and cards will become more and more available. So don't worry about that too much.
Yeah. I'll also just add to that point about collectability is that if there is a version of the card, say Alpha Final Spring Tunic, there's no amount of reprint of the HP1 that's going to affect the price of that card, because it's established itself as a collectible first. People who really like the card might want to play with it, but no player is going to come in and say, I need a Tunic, I'm going to buy the cold foil one. Because it is absolutely 100% a collectible at this point. And even if you reprint HP1 Tunic to the Moon, it's not going to affect the cold foil Tunic price. So that differentiation is very important in Flesh and Blood, and I think if you're someone who has cold foil Tunics, you shouldn't be upset that they're reprinting it in other sets.
No, exactly, and that's really that's kind of where I want to go into one of the things that I really wanted to talk on is collecting and the different kind of levels of collecting. And you're the reference for this. You are one of the what's the word that you like using? Sherpa? Adam?
Oh, me? Yeah.
What language is that?
Sherpa's English, isn't it? It's just like a.
I think. Oh, okay. I just have it.
Yeah, like a Sherpa's like the. Yeah, you hire a Sherpa when you go on a mountain expedition in the Himalayas or something like that.
Okay. So your guide.
You can be our guide or our Sherpa of hodling cards to diamond hands. Hodling cards to diamond hands. So there's this weird thing. So I kind of broke it down to this. In card games, there's a bunch of different levels of where you are with collecting and playing the game. There's people who are very liquid with their cards. Who will, sell a deck immediately. They'll sell their cards and buy other cards and change decks and whatever, right? Yeah. So that would be like the first step. It's like super liquid, no hodl. And then there's like intermediate hodl, which is you have a couple decks, you have a little bit of extra cards. Like you might have like, a couple of different classes that you have like most of the cards, and you're holding on to those cards, and then you sell some of the extra cards for other classes. Those are kind of in the middle. And then there's just under that are the players that tend to have that they want to have like a few sets filled, right? And then you get right under that, you have where I think I fit. So which is I want to have everything that is playable. And maybe I'm a couple steps lower than that, but like I want to have everything that's playable. But I don't really sell cards. I have sold cards in the past, but I don't really sell cards. I just like holding on to my cards. And like I've won some promos, and like one of the things that bugs me about Fab sometimes, and this is like I'm coming from a point of personal privilege. I don't need to sell the cards to afford other things
to make
in
ends
life.
meet.
Exactly. So that's something I'm very aware of. I'm fortunate that I get to hold on to these cards because I don't need to sell them to make money for other stuff. But a lot of people are playing for the promos because they want to sell the promos for the cash, right? And that's gotten to a point where like in ProQuests, like I finished third in the ProQuest, and then I lost my game, and I was playing for the invite. I lost my game. And I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. And then I saw both players in the finals argue about who got the gold foil because they both didn't want the invite. And that made me unbelievably angry. And I get it. Like I get it. The cards are worth a lot of money, and like money is money. But as a player who like I've got most of the cards for the game, the cards that I've won, like I have a full art tunic that I've won from a Rotanats. I keep those. I've kept those cards, right? Actually, I've kept those cards under a recommendation from you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because you're like, no, don't sell it, dude. What are you doing? Because I thought of selling it. I'm like, it's worth $1,000. I should sell it. And you're like, no, don't sell it. If anything, get it graded.
I honestly, at that time, I was seeing so much interest for the card, and knowing they weren't going to print it again, I was like, there's no way this goes lower. Like, just keep it for a little while. Yeah.
I would like to
just hold on
to
to it.
That I am the one who told you not to sell your Icelander, though. Just. Yeah.
You are, yeah.
That's
You're
a
the
big
one.
one.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
big
yeah. So okay. I'll you know what? I'll pass the puck to Adam in a minute here, and I'll get some cards and put them on the stream. I'll do some flexing, and then you can like destroy me with that one card later. So what I meant to say was like when you're starting to play most card games, a lot of players tend to be that liquid player or like have a deck or two, and they have a small collection. And there's kind of a leveling up process that happens between that and getting to the point where you are, which is like very high end collecting, putting getting stuff graded
Right.
and all that. And I feel like a lot of people are really scared about getting into grading. There's like this weird disconnect of, and I wasn't sure, like I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't know how it worked.
Honestly, it is a bit daunting if you don't know what you're like, where you're gonna be looking for the procedure. It's scary because you're sending your cards to the States. If you want to do grading properly, you have to send it to the States. I wouldn't really deal with Canadian companies, because if you're someone buying a card in the States and you see like a grading company that you don't recognize, you're not going to buy the card, right? So I think that the process and the shipping and the logistics of it's scary.
Well, I'll give you a good example. So Adam and I, we have a player that we love, a guy called Oscar Gomez. You've probably met him before. He great player, great guy.
But I don't know if I met him in person.
Golden Gomez on Discord.
Oh, sorry, Golden. Yeah, of course. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Golden Gomez. So Oscar is a great dude, and he is the proud owner of. It's either a 9.5 double quad, or it might be a 10 actually. Is an Marvel Emperor.
So he has a quad plus plus, I guess. So like
I think so. I think it's a quad plus plus.
295s and 210s.
And 10. Yeah,
okay, so that might be the best in the world, actually. If that's a BGS,
he has
or is it PCG?
It's a PCG.
Okay.
I could find it. Oscar could send it to us later. But he is the proud owner of a very highly graded Marvel Emperor, which he plays with. It's slabbed, but nice. He plays with it. So he came to me and he's like, hey, how does grading work? Because he wanted to get it graded. And so I kind of gave him the spiel that you had given me. It's like, go on this, check this out, be careful where you send it, make sure you get insurance and all that. And he sent it out, everything went well, and then he got it back and he got slapped hard by duties. Import.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen.
Smashed by import.
That shouldn't happen. Because it's a service.
No, it's not that. So he had written around. I think he had put in the wrong HS code, or no, PCG sending it back there was an issue with the HS code and it wasn't identified properly, and it was covered for insurance up to like $2,000, and so he got slapped with like 15% duties on that. You should
be able to dispute that, though, I believe.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah, he did.
But like. Yeah, so actually, to tie into that too, I sent in so I was at Worlds in San Jose. I gave PCG my cold foil tunic that was signed by James White, and they shipped it back to me like a week later. So, but when it was coming back to me, I got a phone call by FedEx, and they were like, hey, there's this card or this package that they're declaring. So I actually got insurance for it of like $3,000 US, and when they sent it back, they used that as a declared value of the card, of the package. Yeah. And FedEx was actually upset that they did that, because when I explained to them what it was a card grading that I had imported myself when I went there to San Jose, and they're returning it to me. FedEx said that they labeled it incorrectly at PCG. And then it should not have been a purchase, which is what it was labeled at.
Geez.
And it should not be valued at $3,000. So they were going to customs me for like, I don't know, like $1,000, roughly like that. So I got it fixed with them over the phone before they even shipped it. So great on them to call me about it, because it seemed weird. But yeah, PCG is not doing it properly, because every time I've shipped to BGS, I've never got hit by customs.
I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about
bring up Matt Rogers and
Matt, get in here, Matty. I don't want to say anything bad about PCG, because I think one thing that happens a lot is when you're sending something to PCG, you have to write the right HS code. And then if you do an HS code that's the proper thing, they will, like, I get charged for the duty and taxes on the service.
That's exactly how it should be. Yeah.
And then, but sometimes, and then a lot of players, I think they're afraid of that, because when you see a bill come in for like $800 for you're like, you lose it. So one thing is, if you want to get into grading, I'm sure there's a bunch of videos out there on how to do it. Just know that, it's not as scary as you'd think.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as you think.
Despite our horror stories, it's not as
despite our horror stories, it's not that bad as you think. Like, and you end up getting like, I just, because Adam pointed it out, I'm going to show it. Like, I just got this back. This is my Icelander that I won in Ottawa at the ProQuest last season.
I should get my Icelander graded. Oh.
Yeah, it got an 8.5 on Surface, unfortunately. But
Surface, that's a rare one. Yeah,
it is a rare one. It's the back. It's really rough. Okay. So, and then this is my my pride and joy, my extended art tunic. But
oh damn! I do have a Marvel Crown of Dominion. I should get that graded too. I think that'd be a fun one.
That's really cool. That's a cool one. That's a cool one.
You know what? It's funny because when I opened it, I was like, oh man, and then I like immediately like started reaching out to people. I was like, how should I feel about this value wise? Just out of curiosity, I've no desire of selling it, and people are like $150 maybe, and I'm starting to think, I'm like, which I just based off like the hype around Dynasty, I get why. Like, I'm not upset about it, but it's just funny to think, this thing is like up there with the Marvel Emperor in rarity, and
right.
It is, yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, in rarity, but not in print.
Yeah,
like not in
print value.
Scarcity.
Yeah,
but it's true. It is a legendary that's Marvel version of it, right?
Yeah. So, but I think it's once again one of those things. 5, 10, or 10 plus years. Who knows where it could be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Sorry
going back
to keep interrupting you. Yeah.
No, you're part of this, man. Like, but one of the things that what we're talking about gradings and stuff. I wanted to ask you, because we had a conversation when I was in Ottawa for one of the ProQuests that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to bring it back up. Is we were talking about having cards, and there's a weird kind of place you have to get to where you're like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and just hold on to these cards.
Right.
Because I think one thing that anybody who's ever played card games is, I wish I had kept. I sold this playset of Gaia's Cradles at like 200 each.
Right.
Which for me was a lot of money at the time. I was like 17 or something, right?
Now?
1,000 plus each.
Yeah.
I sold a set of Cradles at like a couple, like 240 each. Like, I think I ended up getting something like $1,000 for the playset, which at the time was a lot of money. I had paid like $70 each. So I was like, man, this is great. I sold Lion's Eye Diamond for 300.
If you regret that, I say you shouldn't, because making 300% profit on a single sale is like way better than you can do in like stocks, and like you shouldn't feel bad about making the profit on that, even though it did go higher, because at the time it was a good idea to sell.
No, it was, and at the time I needed the money. Like, I sold my elves, my Legacy Elves deck, and bought a car.
Yeah, like honestly, no regrets. Like, if you sell something and you make money on it and you needed the money, like, don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, but what I meant,
that's a good point.
Where I wanted to go, I do agree. That's a really good point. Like, and like, profit is profit.
Well, and especially, sorry, Sean, especially because like it's so easy to get caught up in the trap of what ifs, right? Like,
exactly.
So it's like you like, you could have always done better, but you can't beat yourself up over doing well.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And in this unregulated market of card games. I hate to bring crypto in with card games that, like, I think that like they're very separate.
Get that.
Have you heard of NFTs?
You want to talk about NFTs? I have a Bored Ape. You want to buy it?
Yeah.
So, but why I'm bringing the idea of crypto in is like, I find that
there are similarities, kind of.
There's similarities, and I think that, like, and I don't think anybody should ever get into crypto. I think it's a horrible idea. But
unless you got into Bitcoin at the beginning.
They'll tell you otherwise, man. I made millions.
I agree. It's a risky investment.
It's the highest risk there is, I think, besides collectibles and card games.
But at the end of the day, yes, we've potentially made money, but we're all doing this because we enjoy it at the end of the day.
Right.
We enjoy it. We play with the cards. Like, there's a hobby part of it, and so what I meant by that
is a whole ecosystem.
I mean, like, especially in Canada, and you're a big part of that, and Adam's going to go into that, like the Canadian Discord and all that, but like there's a big community. But why I'm bridging the gap between the idea of crypto stuff is, in card games, like anything, whenever there's something that comes out, or cards that tend to go up, if you're someone who's eager and trying to force value and buying out cards to try and force value, oftentimes you can be stuck holding a bag, which is what ends up happening in a lot of the pump and dump and crypto and stuff. And so I think the idea of like holding on to cards that you've gotten at a good value is good. But sometimes the issue is a lot of people will get into card games and they'll buy they'll buy these for like
top
$2,000.
of the line. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll buy these for $2,000 a pop and buy 5 of them, and then they'll buy it off credit, and then the card just
in hopes that it goes up so they can make their money back, right?
Yeah, and then the card stagnates. So what I meant by like talking about holding cards and all that is I'm more into organic holding, like the cards that I get and I open and stuff I keep, and then but I'm not like over leveraging myself.
Like
into
you
buying
haven't
a ton of cards.
maxed out credit cards to buy these cards, and there's no pressure to you selling them. Basically.
No, exactly. There's none. So that was kind of what I wanted to put on you is as someone who's really involved in the game and all that, like what do you think the best way for anybody to get into to get into this
as a like high-end collector?
Not a high-end collector.
Okay.
Someone who's like, I play Flesh and Blood every week. I have a small collection. What do I do with these cards? What would be your best advice?
Interesting. Okay. So from my own experience, the cards that I did get, and the reason I was able to hold on to them for so long is because I got them fairly cheap. Like back in the crew days, even before then, I had a lot of cards that were open from packs that I had bought for like $100 a box, right? So I'm talking like cold foil tunic that I got for like $100 because I bought a box of alpha and opened it, just from Australia because it wasn't available anywhere else. So byproduct, open it, played with my wife, we both liked it, and then I had these cards. So to me, the cost basis of those cards was very low. So that fueled me to be able to keep the cards, right? If I needed the money back then, if there was a big purchase coming up, I likely would have sold off because like you can't blame people for needing money. And if you need the money, it's never the wrong time to sell, right? Like if you need it, you need it. So that was where I came from. And probably the biggest reason why I had that collection in the first place. I didn't just cash out my bank account, take 50 grand, put it into alpha cards. That wasn't me. So it was organic the way it came about. And so most of the decisions I make today in selling cards is do I have an attachment to the card? If I don't, there's probably a good reason to sell it if I want to buy other things. So there's no harm in selling cards that you have to be able to buy other cards. I think that's actually a very healthy way to cycle the hobby. If you're someone who goes deck to deck and you want to try out Assassin, you buy the cards, doesn't really work out for you, you sell the cards off, buy something else. That's a very good way to cycle the money and cycle the cards that you've accumulated in the game. If you're someone who likes to get every playset and make a master collection, like I know several people, you included, Sean, who have
that's both of us,
master sets. You as well, exactly. So people who get every set because they want to have the cards at their disposal to play every deck out there. Obviously, there's no harm in that. But then when it comes time to selling, what do you sell? Right?
You can't sell anything.
You can't break the master set at that point. So in some ways it's dangerous, and once you sell one thing, then you gotta sell the rest because it's like you've already broken it. So I think that if you do have extras, if you're opening product and you have extras and you want to sell the extras to put into other cards, other decks, that's a very healthy thing to do. And actually most people do that I know of. A lot of people who don't have the means to like get everything, they'll just open a few boxes, get stuff they want, trade off to locals, right? So I have this extra surgical, I'll trade it for you a few of your other Majestics, right? And there's no like, it's more of a community building thing than a penny counting, I got to get exactly how much money this is worth, right? Like I'm going to sell it overseas because I want to make the most money possible. So I think that when it comes down to community, trading is probably the best thing you can do, honestly. So and we do that pretty often at my LGSs here, with like Benson, those guys. Like we bring our binders and like we often just kind of look through and say, hey, I need this card. Do you want to? Yeah, exactly. So I guess just like bottom line, like do what makes you comfortable. First of all, there's no real right way to do it. If you're trying to make money off of it, the best advice I can give is sell when there's profit. Don't hold on to the what ifs. If you bought a card for $100, it goes to $200. You don't care about the card. offload it, buy something else with it. You made 100% profit. That's way more than, that's a very good benchmark. If you're looking at profits, doubling your money on a card is really good. So don't feel bad. Don't get hung up on the what ifs. So what makes you comfortable? Hold on to what has more sentimental value to you, and I think you'll do really well, honestly. So don't hoard everything for the sake of hoarding. Is my point.
That's a really good piece of advice. Yeah. So what you're telling me is I should sell my cold foil Briar because I don't care for it.
Well, honestly, if she LLs out soon, maybe.
but get her out. Rosetta's, get them out.
I've personally gone through a transformation in my collecting about half a year ago, where I've been selling things I don't care as much about, and I go for the big ticket items that I really do care about. Like I recently bought like a cold foil Ira from Nationals. Actually, there was an event that Carta Magica set up for the. I bought it. Oh yeah, you probably heard about that.
And those guys are all in my locals, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I ended up buying the card from those guys, and it's a card that I really regretted selling about a year ago, because I initially had one from way back when it came out. It was like I bought it for like $1,000, and then it jumped to like 5,000. I was like, so I was like, okay, I should probably sell this now because like I didn't really care about it. But then now I'm going back to it, like, man, I really wish I kept that card. So I ended up dishing out some cash to buy another one, and that's a card that I want to keep now for a long time. I want to get it graded eventually because it looks really, really nice. But I'm moving soon, so I don't want to grade something and then have it get sent to the wrong address.
Yeah.
So that's what's been holding me back from grading. But anyway, my collecting nowadays is I go for the play sets because I want to build decks for Spark of Genius. I want to play with Eric, but for collecting wise, I go for what I like the most. I'm not going to get everything anymore. Yeah.
I think it's a really good piece of advice is do what you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever. If you, at the end of the day, what's making
it's a hobby
happy.
After all.
Yeah. And I also, go ahead, Sean.
No, absolutely. Knock yourself out, man.
The other part I want to highlight, because you did talk about you brought up the scenario of the the guys who've got their credit cards maxed out and they're trying to make a profit off this, and if you are that person, I mean, that I do feel that's risky behavior, and if you can make it work for you and do it responsibly. But in the world of like you're stressing about, do I sell something, do I keep it, like Rob says, if you need the money and don't feel bad about that. But you can also, if you don't need the money and you just don't know what to do with it, like you can also take comfort in the fact that like if you don't need the money, you can just like being aware of your situation and just if you're doing things comfortably, there's no harm in that, and there's no need to feel any guilt in that, especially.
And I can bring another.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can bring up another really big example of that is when I got the BGS 10 shard, right? When I got that, it was of course the only one in the world, and I was being pulled left and right for that card. Like that was at like when Fab was at its, I would say, peak popularity in terms of like monetary value for cards, right? Yeah, most of the investors were still in it, and I was being pulled on one side where it was like from personal, like from friends who were saying, don't sell the card because it's a one in the whole world, like it's a one of a kind, and then others who are saying like you're crazy to pass up on this card now, like sell it immediately. And I ended up selling it, of course, because I felt like I liked the card, but it wasn't like my centerpiece of like, I mean, it's where I got my namesake, I guess, but it was like it's not what I liked the most from my collection, let's put it that way. So I ended up making, personally I do think it was a good decision to sell at the time, even though it's still one in the world. There's no other BGS 10s, but it was like financially a really good decision, and I don't regret selling it one bit. Even though I missed the card, I think it was kind of objectively the right thing to do for anyone, because like you can't really pass up on that kind of profit, in my opinion, unless you're like super well established and that's what you're going for. You're going for the best in the world and you want to have like a world-class collection that you want to keep for 10-20 years. It might be okay, but I was at a point where I had to make a really tough decision, and I think I made it responsibly. I didn't hold on to it because I think the same card today would probably be worth like maybe half of what it was when I sold it. So and if I really needed the money, I would have been hitting myself for not selling it back then.
No, absolutely. And I think like I that idea of like, is it something that you really care about? Like my tunic, my extended arc tunic, like
I think that's number one. That's number one.
I've been like, I've been asked for, like, so many people have asked to buy this off me, and I refuse. And it's just because it was my first big tournament win for Fab.
Yeah.
And it kind of set the trend for me playing Fab competitively. And you know, and I look at it sometimes, and whenever I doubt myself, like, am I a good player? Because if you're like if you're like Adam and me, and you know, like, not that you're not a great player, Rob, but like if you're like a really, like, someone who's really punishing yourself on, like, when you don't perform,
right,
you have to have something to ground you. And like, and I'll look at that tunic and be like, I know I've got it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll look at my
There's
gold
the
foils.
proof in the card.
Yeah, I'll look at my gold foils that I freaking won because I played for them, and I'll look at my Icelander, and I'll look at my tunic, and I'll go, I know I'm capable. I'll look at my Yoriks and my thing, and like, I went to the Pro Tours. I know I'm capable, and those cards are not going anywhere unless I end up winning the money. But like,
exactly, yeah,
those are the proof of my freaking pudding. Is that, you know, I'm capable and stuff. So those cards are very sentimental to me.
And the cost basis of the cards are near zero, right?
Well,
there you
near
go.
zero. I mean, weeks and weeks and weeks
the
of
entry
testing.
cost. Oh, that your time. Okay, your time, of course.
Yeah, your time.
But the entry to the Pro Quest, $30. Like, that's what they were. So honestly, like, pressure's off at that point. You didn't invest thousands of dollars in these cards. You're not going to go broke if they go down to zero, right? It's like you have no risk to keep them. They're sentimental, and eventually they can go way higher than they are right now. So I think you have everything to gain and like nothing to lose by holding them, really.
No, exactly. And that was a lot of good advice, and I don't really think I'm trying to think, like, what else can I bug you with, because like you're such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to collecting. I'm gonna pass it on to Adam, because we're gonna go away a little bit from collecting, because all the insight that we've gotten here is like chef's kiss. But Adam, you're like, Rob, you're such a big part of Canadian Fab. You're such a big part of the Discord. You were involved with casting Battle Hardened, casting Nats.
That's fun. Yeah.
It was, I love casting. Adam and I love casting. So Adam, can I let you take the lead on talking about Canadian Canadian Fab?
You know what? So I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna, I guess, start off by telling a little story about when I first get into Flesh and Blood, because I first hear about it when I've kind of skirted around the story a few times, but I'll just Cole's notes quickly. I first find out about Flesh and Blood when CFB picks it up, Channel Fireball, and I have no clue, like, and I think before that I had seen something in a Reddit post once about somebody complaining about Magic and being like, I'm gonna go to Flesh and Blood, and I didn't think anything of it at the time, and like, this would have been quite close to Flesh and Blood's like initial launch in 2019, and then CFB picks it up, and that's when I really hear about it. And I first take interest in it, of course, from not a huge finance perspective, but like, I'm seeing things are worth some money, and I'm curious about what's going on there. So that's kind of what pulls me into Flesh and Blood. And then I get my hands on some Welcome to Wraith Unlimited when that comes to North America, and then because we're in a pandemic is the reality. So from when I get my hands on that in November of 2019 to February of 2020, essentially, I kind of live in this little dark world where I'm really excited about Flesh and Blood and I want to play, but there's no armories going on, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so then Skirmish Season 1 gets in it, and I find out about this through Channel Fireball, of course. Skirmish Season 1 goes online, and I start hearing about the idea that people are actually playing on webcams, and I had no idea at this time. And so then
those were the days.
I start to do some investigating.
Good old days. Yeah.
And start to, I find a skirmish and get myself a webcam and everything I need to do it. And and I hop in this, and at this point I don't know about this global community yet that I haven't tapped into, but I'm in this skirmish, and there's people, like, we're in a lobby, and people are talking about, like, getting XP and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh man, I have no clue what any of them are talking
No
about.
idea what's going on.
I remember
the
there's
1000
like
EXP.
yeah,
Oh my
6
goodness,
XP.
yeah.
That was the big deal. 6 XP, and
that was the multiplier. Yeah.
And I had no
It's
idea what
huge.
they're talking about. But then during that skirmish, I believe this is February 27th of 2020 at this point. If the dates locked in my head, that's how big of a deal this is to me.
Yeah.
Somebody goes, well, there's the Canadian Discord, and I'm like, what's the Canadian Discord? And they're like, well, there's this whole.
Yeah.
They didn't really take the time to explain to me. Virtually, they sent me a link, and I just hop in, and all of a sudden, it's like, holy crap! There's this entire
community ecosystem.
yeah, that I had no idea existed. And I remember like that night. The funny thing about that day was the next day I had to work, and I had to get up super early, but I could, like, I was so excited. I couldn't go to sleep that night. I think I stayed up to like 12 or 1 playing games with somebody on webcam or something like
awesome.
that. But it was, and that moment is so impregnated in my mind. And then within the next couple days, I'll be honest, like, your name, that way, I always get my that
right.
your name starts popping up right away, like people, because I think right around that time I think you had the shard, I remember, and you
quite possible, yeah.
You didn't you either I believe you just gotten it back, or I think you hadn't even gotten it back yet. You had just found out about the grade.
Maybe
everybody's freaking out
the
about
grade, yeah.
Everybody's freaking out about it. But I remember like the conversation about how it wasn't a black label at the end of the day. But still, it was just like insane. Like, and that was my first moment kind of immersing myself into this community and getting to really experience the community of TCGs. And to that point, I mean, on that note, like, while I'm gushing, I will say thank you, because like you were a big part of establishing that. You, I believe, were one of the co-founders of that Discord. And how many people are in it? That's got to be a few thousand, I think.
We're hitting 1,600, I think.
Okay,
I believe we are the second largest Discord in the world, behind the international Discord, the purple Discord, exactly. Germany and France, they're like 1.2, 1.3. I think we're leading up on those guys by a little bit. Nice. But I remember the days when so I Adam, just like you, I was playing the game with my wife tabletop for months. This was back in, I think it was February of 2020. It must have been 2020 when Arcane was out. Arcane had just come out. I was buying boxes overseas, playing just kitchen table. No one in Canada had the game, besides like a select few. And I remember my only communication with other players was through Facebook and through the fan page and through people who were in the States and Australia and New Zealand. There were no Canadians around me who were playing it. So I think that when the idea for the Discord came up, that was huge for me, because it allowed me to have a place where I could have conversations with locals in my area, and to be able to have kind of like this sprouting community come out pretty much from nothing. And I was there when there were like, I think 3 or 4 people in the Discord at that point.
Wow.
And I remember, maybe you guys know someone who goes by the name of Kodachi for one on the Discord, so Nia Tran. Adam, you probably know him from the events that we went to. But
he's great. Yeah, shout out to you.
Yeah, so we were just playing, smashing games on Discord, just like, almost every day. Just I remember his Katsu build against my Dash. That was the thing we would do like over and over again, and so that was revolutionary for me. And I think the experience I had back then is what propelled me to keep going for as long as I have.
There's one of the things that we talk about a lot on the podcast, and I think it's any Flesh and Blood podcast, there's something very special about the community for this game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hands down. Yeah.
If you've played card games for, like you said, you played Yu-Gi-Oh for 15 years, and like there's just like
I was never part of any community for that. to be
and not
honest.
just that, like those communities, oftentimes you go to stores and there's like aggression, there's like a hostility there.
Yeah,
and
there
it's
is.
just weird. Like, for example, dude,
Like
you
locals and
got a
stuff.
card, like, let's not mince words, you sold a card for like a very significant amount of money. In any
Right.
other card game, that would not have been a public thing.
Mm.
No one would like advertise.
It wouldn't have been like
that
as celebrated, I guess, as it was.
it wouldn't have been
There would have
celebrated.
been anger,
A lot of,
resentment, I bet you. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
there would have been a lot of anger and stuff. Like I've seen it firsthand, right? It's like, oh well, yeah, of course you got that card. And then like even people questioning like the legitimacy of like you owning that card, like that happens in a lot of card games. And it's like,
Okay. Yeah.
so the fact that,
Yeah.
hey, I got this back, and then everybody's freaking out and happy for you and happy for, just like, hey, I can't believe a Canadian has this. This is a Canadian card. And like, there's just this like,
It helps that we're all adults in this game. I think
It does
Our
help.
mature community is wonderful. Yeah.
We are,
Yeah.
very mature. Yeah.
Like I've seldomly like played against players who, like, I think I've had like 2 bad interactions with players, and it wasn't necessarily because they were bad people. They might have just been having a bad day. I've lost my temper once or twice because I have problems. But like, I think that we have such a welcoming and beautiful community for the game, and that comes down to, even like, you've gone to bigger events, like even when I went to the Pro Tour, both Lille and New Jersey, like
yeah.
the ceremony the night before, like the ball, what do you call it?
Welcome.
Yeah, the
I forget the name
or whatever.
Banquet. This is called the banquet.
The banquet. Yeah, the banquet. Like, I got to sit down and talk with James White for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think he might be a big part of why the community is so great, in my opinion. He welcomes almost everybody who approaches him for conversation, and I've been in a few of those like lines where you go and get a mat and get it signed, right? And like, he will talk to you for like 5-10 minutes about just anything. He'll show so much enthusiasm to what you have to say.
So I got when we were in Lille, I caught him I was at a bakery. That was a really good bakery near the center, and he kind of just walked in, and I said, "Oh, I'll come and see you at your booth later." And then I came and see him at the booth, and I walked into the booth and I said, "Hey," he goes, "Oh, you were the guy from." I said, "Yeah, well, I was at the bakery and stuff." I said, "Did you end up getting the pain au chocolat?" I recommended. He was like, "It was really good." Yeah. So we ended up talking. I said, "It must be really surreal for you." Because he's just a guy.
This is his baby. This game is something he's been working on for a decade almost.
It is, but he's just a guy. And what I mean by he's just a guy, it's like, you can tell by Adam, you might laugh at this. Do you remember when we were at Pro Tour Lille, and then the calling came, and the day of the morning of, he was reading his like speech thing from his phone. He's like, it's all about bringing the game like
together in the flesh and blood.
The same exact speech. He had given us the same spiel the night before, and I'm like, this guy is just like a guy who's like, he's involved in this and he's trying to figure it out, and he's kind of going with it. So I came to him and I said, "This must be surreal for you." Like, and he goes, "Man, you have no idea."
Yeah.
He goes like, I don't know what this is, but like, he goes, I'm a goddamn rock star to like, like it almost feels like he's a rock star. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, good for you. But there's a humanity there, and he cares about this so deeply that I think that sense of community like branches out into all of the little pockets of communities. And Canada is a really strong community. And you could see it by the people that are at the helm of these different things, like the people that are running podcasts and running Discords, like your Discord that you're running. Like, I remember when I got introduced, it was you, Jordan, and even like, if you look at outside of that and you look at other actors in the scene, like everybody that's involved with Flesh and Blood is so positive.
Even the collectors and well, I guess they have to be, but I would say that like, even the people who would normally be very behind the scenes in this kind of thing, they're very at the forefront of community. Like Saints, you have James Curry, who's always there commenting on stuff. You got like of course Unsealed, Fab Unsealed too. Like, they're huge collectors, but they're so now is very integrated into the community, right? So I think that's a big difference to a lot of communities in TCGs.
And if you had and I'm going to put you on the spot again because I like doing that. I'm sorry.
No, totally fine.
being kind of a community leader and being a successful podcaster for the game, and in your own merits and all that. is there something that you would tell players that or haven't really found Fab yet, who, might be playing a game that they're bored with, or just playing it because of a habit? Is there a something you would tell them to be like, hey, it's like we have cookies?
Honestly, I probably wouldn't even touch on the financial aspect of it, right? I'd be like,
yeah,
I would. I've told a few friends that, and the people who I've eventually roped into the game, that this game, I think, is something special. And people who come in from other games, they sense it right away. They know that this is a game that's going to last, and it's led by people who care about their product and care about the players at the forefront of their mission. And I would tell them that first, it's a damn good game. Like there's no sugarcoating that. It's like this is a fantastic game, and it's a game that my wife doesn't even like TCGs, but she plays this game, which is like, to me, very interesting. I didn't really.
That's a big honor. Like that's up there.
It is, yeah, and she loves just smashing brute and just loves the RNG aspect. So I think this game has something for everybody. The decks that it has are very refined and very unique. If you like control, if you like more like back and forth interaction, if you like aggressiveness, if you like RNG, it's got everything. And I think that just kind of when you're playing the game, it's different than Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't play Magic, so I don't know about Commander, but I heard it's similar to Commander, where you have your hero and then you have like everything around that. So Flesh and Blood, it's kind of like you're integrating yourself as the hero of the game, right? So that's a very big part of it for me. It's really cool because you can kind of like, you can focus on one specific hero and you can kind of like work on that hero, get all the cards for that hero, get all the nice shiny stuff for that hero. It feels very personalized, whereas in other games you might not get that. So that's a big selling point that I bring up. I also, the financial stuff is secondary, but it is true that you can't deny how much some of these how cards are worth. So if you end up pulling something nice from a booster box, well, you can sell it back and continue putting that money into other cards, into other sets.
Yeah.
So the hobby can fund itself with a bit of luck. But
with a bit of luck, which
it's a plus.
Play carefully, kids. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, it's not like other games where like living card games where you buy a set but you can't sell it back because like I don't know if you guys have heard of Netrunner. So you buy the set, you get all the cards for it, but you can't keep using that to fuel other purchases because it's all just sunken cost as soon as you buy it. So that's what I like about TCGs in general. Actually, it can fuel purchases for other sets eventually.
There's a living economy to it. That's pretty good. Just the hero thing is a big thing also. Like there is something for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something to tickle your pickle, regardless.
And I would say, I also think the biggest thing is just the community and the people in charge really care. On a tangent, I don't know if you guys have kept up with MetaZoo at all. Is that a curse word on this podcast?
No.
Like,
no.
He will not be named.
No.
Brief point. I'm just gonna say the person running it is just doing a terrible job, because he censors every criticism that comes out from his player base. You say one wrong thing and you get banned from Discord, and that's the 100% the truth.
That is, I mean, look. Oh man,
there's a duality there.
I'm gonna go on a pretty hardcore tangent here, and we might have to cut this, but we'll see. So, I have a really strong opinion on card games because I'm someone who's been working on card games for a while, and I was developing a game called Wardens, which was a very similar game to Fab.
I didn't know that.
We can go into the long story at some point, but I was developing a game called Wardens, which was a hero-based creatureless card game, a la Fab, right? And this was something I was working on in 2016. All the way until 2019 when Fab came out, and I went, oh well, oops, and so I stopped working on.
That's such a shame.
It's okay. I'm cool with it. But I have an opinion because I love card games. I've developed a bunch of card games. Like I'm a card game design hobbyist, and I just love card games. I've played so many. Like Flake and I were having like a count off of like how many games we've played because Flake famously has played a shit ton of card games.
Yeah.
So I love card games, and there's something very obvious when a product is released and you can clearly see it that it's not
A gimmick?
It is a gimmick, but it just doesn't have that sincerity.
Right.
And there's
Right.
a sincerity that is very transparent when a game comes out and it impacts you. And I don't give a I apologize. I don't give a shit whether you believe in this or not, or anybody believes in this or not that's listening.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of game design is art. If you're making a video game, it's art. If you're making a card game, it's art. A board game is art.
I think that's actually officially what it's categorized as.
It is. It's an expressive. It's an artistic expression. It's a creative expression. And you know, Adam's a musician, and I'm a designer because I love that stuff. I don't know what if you do you podcast, so there is artistic expression in that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So people that are into whatever art they're into can tell when something is genuine. It's the difference between someone that looks at a painting from an artist and can get touched by it, and someone that will look at a painting and not get touched. When something is truly genuine, it will reach out and then hit the person. And that's what Fab did to me. I played Fab, and beyond like the game system being beautiful, I could see the purpose behind it. There is something you can just touch, and anybody who's played the game will know this. And it's highly personal, and you can play like I played the One Piece card game, and not to throw shade because I know there's a big One Piece, but the card game feels very mass produced. I was
gonna bring that exact same.
It feels mass produced. Yeah, and I'm sorry, like it's not a bad game system, and I'm sure the designers behind it love it very dearly, but it feels mass produced and it lacks that care, and that's what MetaZoo did to me. I saw MetaZoo, I looked at the game. It's a game. It's whatever. I looked at the cards, and then I saw the kind of people that were getting into it, and I'm like, you know what? This is not for me. It lacks heart. It lacks the heart. And I feel that with video games, that's why I have a really hard time getting into video games nowadays. I get into the weirdest, like independent games that I just latch on, and like, if people can be genuine about the way they feel and what they do. And that's what the one thing I'll say about Fab in general is there is something so genuine about this game, and it translates to the players. It translates to you, Rob. It translates to the people making podcasts for this game. It translates to Adam. It translates to all of us.
Absolutely.
When you make something that's genuine, you create a community that's genuine, and you create interest that is genuine, and it's just it spreads across, and you create a world.
It's right down the pipeline.
And what's really weird about Fab is that the second someone comes in, an invader, someone that comes into the game that is not genuine, everybody sniffs them out.
Yeah, 100%.
There's just one thing. It's like you out. Like it's so. I think that's where I'm at with Fab right now. Is I think it's such a beautiful, genuine expression of what someone wants to bring forth that I can't stay away from it. Yeah. And like and I've said this before, I will buy 3 cases or more of every single set until this game dies. And I will try to hold the master set because I believe in the product, and that's the one way I can show it.
Yeah.
Buy the goddamn buy the cards. Like if you love the game, buy the cards. So sorry for the big tangent there, but Adam.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that's
Did you want to
No, I think that's actually a really good place to kind of start to shore this thing up. We're hitting I'm seeing the 123-minute mark where I made the people promise to make this a shorter episode, and man, we did not.
Sorry,
deliver.
y'all.
But that's okay, because I think this has been actually a really cool conversation. I've really enjoyed sitting down with both of you. I know, when Sean suggested we bring you on, Rob, I knew it was going to be. I definitely knew it was like this was Sean's to kind of spearhead, because I think I got a cooler perspective on collecting than I do. But at the end of the day, I knew this was going to be a cool conversation, and I've certainly enjoyed it, and I hope our listeners have as well. On that note, any closing thoughts, anyone, before we move on to the formalities of the conclusion of this podcast?
Well, I think before we get onto the formalities, Rob, the floor is yours, dude. Plug away, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, I am one half of the podcast / YouTube channel Spark of Genius, named after the card, of course. I don't even know why we picked it. We were just looking at cards and like, this is a nice name, we'll just use that. Well, I also loved Dash at the time, so that's kind of what propelled that. So yeah, I'm one half. Eric is the other half. We do videos every Tuesday, Thursdays, and sometimes on Saturdays, so you can check us out there. We do upload to Spotify and other podcast mediums as well. And yeah, I mean, feel free to follow us. We do kind of all sorts of stuff. We do gameplay, actually, probably mostly gameplay, but gameplay. We do collaborations. We do interviews with top decks, interviews with people who have won in callings and stuff like that. So, yeah, check us out.
So there's so before we go into the closing statements and our usual nonsense that we end the show with, which Adam is going to be the maestro of our beautiful cacophony. There's one last thing that, Rob, I'd like you. We talked about a card before the podcast started. You are the owner of something that honest to God is like probably the sickest flex in Flesh and Blood.
Very near and dear to my heart as well.
I know, but at the same time, like, it is the limited edition like Bugatti of the Fab universe. So I think we should give our viewers here just a nice little flex before we end the cacophony. So to everybody, this is Rob. Actually, Rob, I'll let you introduce the card.
So this is a card that I've had for a long time now that I have not gotten graded until recently. This is the one of a kind, as far as we know. Cold foil. Let me do it this way. Cold foil Fyandal's Spring Tunic that has James White's signature on it. This was signed in New Zealand by a guy called Stephen Rose, and this was back when the card was worth maybe like $100. So back then, James White was like, I can sign this card because it's not worth very much. But since then, he has said publicly that he has not signed cold foils anymore. So this is going to be, hopefully, the only signed Tunic for as long as the game keeps going. And I brought it to Worlds in San Jose, and they had a PCG booth there, and I figured, I asked them, hey, do you guys authenticate signatures? And they said, well, we will in March, or we will in a few months after the Worlds was. And they were like, but we can do it now for you if you want. I was like, okay, sure. So I gave it to them, and the grade came back a 9.5. Got dinged on corners, got a 9 there. But actually, no, I'm wrong. It got a 9.5 on corners. It was a surface, which I think makes sense because it was signed. So 9 on surface, and it also has the Worlds logo right under the 9.5 there. So it got the special Worlds logo.
Oh, cool.
So it was, yeah, so basically it was there from the first World Championship, signed cold foil Tunic, one of a kind, my prized possession in Fab. Yeah, so there it is.
I'm pretty much speechless. That is the craziest card I've ever seen.
It's also sentimental because I've had it for just so long, and I got it from a local who initially bought it off eBay, and then I was like, oh, I mean, you're selling that? I'll take it. This is like
sure,
probably almost 2 years ago, but yeah.
That's crazy, man. Well, that's awesome. So with that being said, Adam, Maestro.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Rob, for joining us today. We are the Combat Chain. I'm Adam Philipchuk. He's Sean Hill. You can find us on YouTube at the Combat Chain. You can also find us on all podcast streaming platforms, and we are also on Twitter. At the Combat Chain. I am at Fomtoolery TCG. He's at Sean Hill. In the upcoming category, we do have Frank Hung coming on the show really soon. Like I said, we've got a whole slew of spoilers that kind of came out, and I think there's Frank's a brilliant mind when it comes to things like analyzing and understanding the value and like playing cards, knowing there are so many level ups I've experienced out of talking with that man, and I'm excited to dive into that. And even on top of that, Sean and I are I think we've got some plans to kind of dive into some spoiler stuff on our own too. And I'm gonna be honest, Sean, I really want to do the Viscerai versus Prism thing now. That sounds like a lot of fun. So
that, I will play. I miss Prism so dearly. Like when I saw Dusk Till Dawn, which we'll talk about with Frank, when I saw that, there's a part of me that like
even alive again.
It's not just that, like, you know what, like for a while there when Prism hit LL, like bread didn't taste as sweet.
Yeah.
And then I got like
colors
and
were
then
a little duller.
Yeah.
Colors were duller, and just life seemed
music
gray.
wasn't as sweet.
music just didn't give me chills anymore. And then Dust Till Dawn got revealed, and I saw that Facebook post, and all of a sudden, all my senses came back to me. It felt like one bad dream. So yeah, anytime I'll play Prism, absolutely.
Okay, cool. We'll look into that. And I think, I always mention it because I want to keep the seed planted. The Patreon, we're working on figuring it out. Stay tuned for that. And I think that's about everything on our end. Once again, thank you so much, Rob, for joining us. But we have one more order of business. Rob, every episode we close in a very special way. I will say until next week, and then in unison we will all say we are closing the combat chain, and it is corny and it is campy and it is so much fun. Will you join us to close the combat chain?
Absolutely.
All right. Until next week, I'm Adam, he's Sean, and we're closing the combat chain. That was awesome. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.